You guys are essentially like headhunters for
Yeah.
municipalities?
Yeah.
Well, why don't you introduce yourself? Who are
Okay.
you?
I don't know. Who am I?
Do you want them to wait for
They
the
don't know
camera?
who you are.
No.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm Bob Mercier. I've been with MRI since 2014, I think it is, which is 5 years now. MRI is a recruitment firm based up in Meredith, New Hampshire. I have been a municipal manager in Burlington, Massachusetts for 20 plus years. I was a town manager in Billerica, Massachusetts. I was a town manager interim in Wayland, Mass, Boxborough, Mass, and my career started way back when, and I'm not even going to tell you when, in Maynard, Massachusetts, the home headquarters of Digital Equipment Corporation at the time. Those of you who've been here long enough remember Digital Equipment. And I retired in 2012 out of Burlington, and I've been doing this kind of stuff
You're
since.
retired now?
I'm retired.
Retired?
Yeah, I'm retired. Buzz?
And I'm Buzz Stapchinsky, and I had about a 40-year career. I worked for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for a few years when I came here in the mid-'70s, and then was assistant town manager and then town manager in Wilmington, Massachusetts, and for about 10 years, 11 years. And then after that, I was manager for 25 years in Andover, Mass. And I retired 4 years ago, and I've been doing these searches with Municipal Services Inc. for the last 4 years or so. And Bob and I have worked together and have had a lot of fun meeting with folks like you, and trying to do the best we can to get the right fit for town administrators, town managers, those kinds of folks. And I think we've been pretty successful over the years because our firm, MRI, Municipal Resources Inc., has a policy of if it doesn't work out in the first year, we'll redo the search. And we haven't had to do that. We've been very fortunate that, what I tell people.
That's because our boss says, you better find the right people. Because if we're doing this again and we're not getting paid, you guys are in trouble.
Well, and it's, you gotta trust the process. We have the listening sessions. We met with department heads earlier today. We'll meet with you folks now. We'll be at the town hall at 6 o'clock tonight. So, we listen to the community, find out, kind of, with the things we're gonna ask you in a few minutes, really two basic questions, sort of the profile of the next town administrator, the characteristics, the traits, those sorts of things. So we want to get a handle on that. And then the other thing we're going to ask you for are the challenges. And you flip the other side, what are the opportunities? The challenges, the opportunities for the next 5 or 10 years. We've talked to the selectmen already individually, so by phone, and so we have their perspective. And then with the department heads, we ask them those very same questions. And now we'll be asking you, you folks, those sorts of things. But our process is methodical. We move along at a nice pace, but it's somewhat methodical. So this stage is listening to you folks, all right? And then there is an ad out now. There's an ad out in all manner of publications. The Mass Municipal, MMA, Mass Municipal Association, it's on their website, all right? So it's on their website. And then it's in the ICMA, the International City Management Association publication. And both of those, it go around the world, right? With the web the way it is today. If some person wants to come to Massachusetts, they'll watch the either the municipal association in that state, or the other states, they call it the League of Cities and Towns. They'll watch the League of Cities and Towns. They'll watch their websites, or they will watch the ICMA, the International City Management Association's website. And then I get a little funky because I went to the University of Kansas for graduate school, and the graduate school program sends out a newsletter every 2 weeks to the alumni, anybody who wants it, on job ads. So I always send them the job ads they're working on. So this Friday, the what they call it, the Greener Grass publication, Greener Grass, will have an ad in there for Hanson. So who knows, there may be somebody in Oklahoma, Texas, wherever, who says, gee, I really enjoyed vacationing on the Cape. Maybe, just maybe, this would be like the right move.
Yep.
And so you never know. We cast the net widely, and we're looking for good candidates. Somebody who be have the right fit for this community. So it's really all about the fit, and as you can have the best education in the world. I mean, you could have the best master's degree from Simmons in library science, but if you're not the right fit for the community,
Not gonna work.
it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we're really trying to get the right fit for this community. Somebody with the temperament, the background, and from what we hear and what we see, it's a great community. It'll sell itself. I mean, just driving around here, we're both from the North Shore, so we're in foreign territory down here. It's a little
So
tough.
go ahead, ask us about our commute this morning coming through
Oh,
the
we
city of
talked about it.
Boston. Go ahead, ask us.
I used to teach in Belmont, so I.
Oh,
understand.
okay.
All right, so you know about commuting.
Yes.
Well, it's a great community, and for the right person, the right family, what a place to raise kids. What a place to live.
We
So-
were involved in the search, and we found the recruitment for the Hanover town manager, which is one of your people here, younger individual who actually, to Buzz's point, came from Vermont.
Oh, wow.
He was up in, I want to say, just outside of
Yeah, I should
Burlington.
know. Sherborne? Is there a Sherborne, Vermont?
But we had known about Joe, his name is, so he's there now, and we gave him a call. We do New England. MRI represents the 6 New England states, so we knew about Joe, and his wife was from the South Shore.
Oh, for goodness sake.
So we made the contact with him and said, what do you think about Hanover? At the time, we were also doing Dartmouth. He says, I'm interested in anything on the South Shore right now, because I want to get back. His wife wanted to come back, which is the important thing, right? And then you made the move. But anyway, we went through that process, and Joe's been their manager for a while now. And all indications are he's doing fine, so.
Yep. So, with that in mind, we're interested in hearing what you folks think about sort of the fit, the characteristics, the traits, that sort of thing of the next administrator here.
Well, I can say that Karen Stoll, the library director. We definitely want somebody who thinks the library is an important part of the community. Right now, we're actually involved in a building project. So we're looking at, we asked the townspeople what they want in their library. We looked at the current building and decided that based on what the people want, we're not meeting the needs. So we're hoping to either do an expansion or new construction at some point in the future. So we would want somebody who would, be on board with that. Somebody who, has, right now the next step would be to look for an architectural firm. So we would need the town administrator, I believe right now, that position, Hanson, also does procurement. So somebody who is skilled in procurement, getting on RFPs for things like that. So somebody who has those skills would be important to us.
Has that been a topic of discussion in the community, or is it more internal right now?
No, we did a presentation at the last town meeting
Okay.
to inform the public of where we're at, and we have
Okay.
a lot of stuff on our website. And we've since the town administrator's gone now, we're kind of slowed down a little bit. We're kind of waiting for that next step to proceed, but that's definitely important to us.
Mm-hmm. All right, so, you want somebody who's library friendly, a library user, somebody who has a library card? Do you present them with a library card when the new manager, new administrator comes in? You have a little- I say, do you give them a library?
Yes, we'd love for them to come in and get a card. But like I said, the libraries now are definitely more like a larger part of the community. They're in terms of like community space and
Yeah.
community meeting
Oh,
space.
yeah.
So somebody who sees that part of libraries and
Yep.
thinks that's important for the community.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does your expansion anticipate, and I suspect we'll hear about it too also, does that anticipate staying with the senior center or a standalone building?
We're not sure about that right
Okay.
now. We're hoping to get state money.
Yeah.
And they, in general, they like to have separate
Correct.
buildings.
Yeah.
So,
You think you'd be eligible for state money?
yeah.
It's usually a waiting list, but.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
It's like
Right
the
now,
SBAB
Yeah,
stuff.
so
with the
there's some
schools.
issues in the state side in terms of funding right now, but they're working on that, so hopefully that'll clear up and the late waiting list can move along and then they can do another construction grant round, which was what we would hope to get involved with, so.
All right. Now, I don't know this, so the library trustees, are they elected, appointed?
They're elected.
They're elected trustees, all right,
Yeah,
very good.
there's a 6-member board.
Yeah.
And in Massachusetts, you're pretty autonomous anyway,
Mhm.
under the statutes, so.
Right.
That's, well, that's interesting. It's interesting because you commenting on that, we did not hear that this morning, but you commenting on that, we heard from other departments about, I guess we'll call it in general, facilities needs.
Mhm. Yes,
And
that's, yeah.
there's a lot of that dialogue going on. And, you know, so it seemed to us that the next TA has to come in and kind of pull this all together and put it in some type of pecking order and say,
Absolutely.
you know, the highway guys need a new garage. That's priority, or the library's the priority, and then we go down the pecking order.
Or removing empty buildings that we have.
You've got empty building, we did hear about that, we
Yeah.
heard about that. So that's interesting, that's interesting.
So I think to sort of piggyback on that, obviously a town manager is somebody who has to be well-versed in policies and stuff like that when it comes to towns and municipalities. But I also think a background or a sense of business is important because really you're wearing many hats as a town manager. You're sort of a salesperson in one instance. You're a negotiator in another instance. You have to have sort of that business sense and that business savviness to get things done. And along with that, I think a personal trait that you need to be is assertive but flexible. You know, willing to really state what you believe in and what you feel is really truly the right thing for the town, but also being willing, if you're at a table, to hear the other party's side of it and being able to work with those people and find a common place, or, you know, or if you really believe that what you're representing at that moment is really what is best for the town, then being able to say that without any sort of drama around that.
Yeah, yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes, it does, yeah, and I think that, you know, the key word I think is use the word listen, you know, listen, be able to communicate clearly, assertively if needed, and also, you know, somewhat flexible so you're not like locked in to, you know, your position.
Right.
And willing to at least communicate openly about it.
Yeah, I think our sense is that in a town like this, a smaller community, if you're not listening to people, you're gonna crash and burn in about 6 months.
Absolutely.
That's my sense.
You will have
Yeah.
people on either side of the fence. You will
Right.
have people that will love you, and you will have people that
Right.
will
Right.
work against
Right.
you any way that they can.
Right.
You
And
know,
one of the things we try to discern as we go through the process and listen to the community is one thing I think Buzz and I both know, and we've seen it, where there are some communities who need it. You don't necessarily need a change agent coming in here. You've got good people in place. You just got to listen to them and engage them and empower them. And that's my sense as to the type of individual who makes sense. In some communities, I could probably name them, and you could probably name them, they need a change agent. They need somebody to come in and blow it up. Because it's just not functioning.
Sure.
But that's not what I see, and I don't know about Buzz, but that's not what I see for Hanson, so.
well, I think it's something, like somebody who's invested in our community. I grew up here in town, moved away for a number of years, and my husband and I chose to move back about 4 years ago and raise our young family here. So I don't know all the history, but I do know from anecdotal stories that there's been a lot of changeover in that office.
Yeah,
And
thank
we-
you.
yeah. And so we need somebody who's gonna come in here and truly want good things for this town and be invested in it and stay for the long haul and continue to do a good job. I think,
Yeah.
you know, this, and I'm sure you guys know that too, the rotation of this, it doesn't allow for us to start to build on the things that the town is trying to move forward with. It continues those sort of roadblocks and speed bumps along the way. So you said that the guy from Hanover is from Vermont, and I hope that works out.
Yep.
Personally, I would much rather somebody who,
Yeah.
not necessarily from Hanson,
Yep.
but just gets the town and is,
Yep.
you know, I feel like the investment from other TAs has not been there.
Mhm.
I feel like this was just a paycheck, and that might be harsh to say, but I feel like people weren't truly invested in their position, and this is more than just a 9-to-5 job. This is
And if
very
it comes
important.
across to you that way as an observer, and it's coming across to other people that way. in the
So I'm
community.
speaking for everybody else.
So in fact, we did a search in another community, and the community, like yours, has a number of events. I'll call them high holy days. And so when we were, recruiting people on the phone, because we'll call people on the phone, I remember telling these people, this is not a 9-to-5 job. You've got to be there on Memorial Day.
Yep.
You got to be there on Veterans Day.
You have to be visible.
You got to be there on Town Day.
Josh is very visible as a representative. We always see him.
So you got to be there on those high, whatever they are. It could be Patriots Day, it could be 4th of July and flipping pancakes.
Absolutely.
With the selectmen or whoever. But you can't just think that you're going to leave on Friday and not show up back until Monday morning.
Right.
So we try to make that clear to people that the community, if that's what is needed, in this other community it was, and it sounds like here too, it's a family-oriented community. And hi, I'm Buzz Stachinski.
Yeah, hi, sorry, Josh Keller, I'm a state representative for Hanson.
Oh,
Hi, Josh.
And,
nice
I'm Bob.
meeting
I
you.
wanted, if I wanted to just chime in, if that's okay.
Yeah, jump in, please.
So I agree, we don't need to change it, we need a stability agent, we sort of need the opposite
Good
of
point.
that.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, and I have a kind of a unique perspective because I'm not a Hanson resident and I don't want this job, but I love the town of Hanson. I served the town for the last 8 years as a representative. Before that, I was the editor of and founder of the local newspaper. So I spent 20 years of knowing Hanson. And I will stick up for the last few town administrators that we've had. I think they've been all good people. One of them did something wrong, but they've all been good people in terms of their time here. I think it's challenging for sure when there's this turnover. I can tell you, speaking, there's certain issues that are on my agenda, like, not to get too into the weeds, but like South Hanson redevelopment and getting a wastewater treatment facility there. And I can recall having conversations with the town administrator 2 times ago, and he was gung-ho when we were working on this, and then, he left. And then we lost that knowledge, and we started again with Mike, and he was gung-ho, and he started working on it, and then he left. And it's like we've had 10 years go by, and we haven't made any progress on that, and it's just because we've had this instability. And that's that's challenging as a representative, and I'm sure it's super challenging as taxpayers and citizens that want to see progress on these issues. So my message, I just want to come down and kind of hear what people have to say, but my message was, I also feel like I have a stake in this, is that we need someone who's going to be invested in the community. And the last 2 people were, I would see them, I go to a lot of events, and actually, Mike was good, but the previous person actually was great. He restarted the Hanson Day, and he was very invested. Spacing on his name.
Ron San
San Angelo.
Yeah.
And he ended up having some personality disputes with the board and the politics, and that was tough.
Yeah.
So I think they've tried, but I think we really need to have someone who's not just an assistant town administrator somewhere, and this is the next step to becoming a town administrator in a big town.
Right.
So that's hard to do. I'm sure that's your job. That's why you have a tough job. But that's my 2 cents, and I'm happy to help however I can to help the town because I want to see us succeed. Thank you.
Yeah, the instability, it really puts a roadblock into moving forward because that institutional memory leaves in that office.
And it's about to leave in a huge way when Mary walks out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we've heard that. But, Buzz mentioned he was 25 years in Andover. I was 20 years in Burlington. If something happened 10 years ago, I remembered it.
Right.
And if somebody came to me and said, why don't we do this? I said, you know what? We tried that 10 years ago. Here's why it failed or succeeded, whatever. But that you lose that continual turnover, it's problematic. It's very problematic. And for the department managers, they get no feeling that there's consistency moving forward. The new manager or new administrator may have a certain philosophy in doing things, and then a year and a half later, just as you get acclimated to that, you got a new person coming in with a totally different view, and you're sitting there going, man, am I right? I mean, we heard some of that this morning. Consistency is important. Managers, our experience, managers who are department managers at that level want somebody at the top who they can trust, believe in, leads, not micromanage. We know what we're doing, but just provide us with some focus and some ability to move forward as a team. And if you keep getting that turnover, everybody else continues to do their job, but they lose their enthusiasm because they may have been on board with an expansion to the library. And then the administrator leaves, and you're like, I gotta start all over again with, right? Yeah.
If I could throw my 2 cents in.
Yes.
I'm Mary Collins, I'm the Elder Affairs Director, so
Yep.
at the Senior Center. To speak to the sense of community, I think that is absolutely paramount in finding the right person. Hanson is a wonderful community, and I come from a distance to be here for the last, I've been here 11 years, and the last 9 years in my position as the director. So I am very blessed to have Hanson in my life, as Josh is, not living within the community. As the Director of Elder Affairs, I would like to see that the sense of community extends to people as they age. And my focus is to try and keep people within the community so that they can actually successfully and healthfully age in place in a healthy manner, and have services available to people within the town to allow people to age within the community that they helped build. We have people that live within this community who grew up in the community, born and raised, and are now 90 years old, and have worked very hard and have put their children through school here, and they don't want to have to leave the community because they can't afford to live within that community.
Yep.
That being said, we are an aging population. The Senior Center currently has a needs analysis taking place, with the hopes that when that analysis is done and we see the facts, that we might be able to move forward in whatever avenue to make certain that the needs of the community are met as people age.
That's an issue across the state, the aging in place, and people. When I was managing Burlington, I'm sure Buzz faced the same thing in Andover. We had people, as you suggested, living in their homes their whole lives. Their kids have gone through the schools. They're now grandparents. They want to sell the house because they can't maintain it, but they got no place to go. No place to go.
So that
We're up along the 128-93 belt. You can imagine the cost of housing in our communities. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, they got little split level ranches, and I don't know where you can go.
So I think maybe our new town administrator has to have kind of a vision of where the town might be in another 5, 10, 20 years out, and looking at options for more affordable housing for our seniors if they want to remain in their community. Maybe thinking a little bit outside the box, I guess. I suppose the whole Commonwealth is doing the same thing. And also, because we have a separate program here in Hanson for our frailer seniors with Alzheimer's and dementia, we have a supportive day program that takes place at the Senior Center as well.
Run by the community?
Run by the town of Hanson.
Really? Okay.
And there are 2 separate entities
That's very good.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because that actually allows people, some people have moved here to live with their children. Others live within the community and their spouse just has a difficult time.
Yep.
A little bit of respite. But this takes place at the same time that the Senior Center is open, in the same space that the Senior Center is open. So I'm hoping that if the needs analysis shows that it warrants looking at the space in a different way, whether it be to extend enlarge the space, whatever the case, that the town administrator will have the foresight to kind of support that and help move that forward.
All right.
And speaking purely as a department manager, I most definitely would like to see a town administrator that has open communication with the staff. I think as Josh said, we've had TAs that have been very open,
Yep.
very supportive
Yep.
of the staff. I think the only problem has been the ebb and flow of TAs.
Yep.
Yep, yep.
I think everybody said it.
Everybody said
Enough said, Marge.
She said,
it. We met her on the way in, and
Yeah.
Marge on the way in.
what can we turn around? What do you guys have been talking to department heads and doing your due diligence? What kind of things do you hear? Obviously, you picked up on the continuity issue, but are there other themes that emerge?
Yes. People, I think, and this, attributed to nobody in one sense, the department managers want somebody that, A, they can support, and that manager in turn, or administrator in turn, supports them. And doesn't micromanage, because they all know what they're doing, and I get that, we hear that in a lot of the communities, and most of the communities I'm familiar with, and Buzz is familiar with, they do have good staff. But they want somebody that they can feel has their back when things get ugly, as they sometimes do in a political environment. But we turned that around, Josh, and we said to them, well, how does that new administrator, let's say Buzz is your new administrator, he starts December 1st, and this is your first meeting with him. How does that administrator, who doesn't know you guys from Adam, how does he gain your trust? He or she gain your trust. So it's a two-way street, because the managers this morning were telling us, we want somebody we can trust. And from the manager's perspective, or the administrator, they come in here and they say, I don't know you people.
Yeah.
My life's on the line here. If you guys aren't any good at what you're doing, you kind of submarine me in certain things. So I don't know you at all. So how do we build that relationship?
I'm not a department head, so I don't
Yeah,
have that relationship. I presume from the question, though, that there's some level of lackingness in the past. Is it?
There were, and it's no one person, but there was a sense that a couple of people felt they weren't sure of whether or not, and I think a lot of that, Josh, was related to the instability. It's just hard
Right, it
to
is
continue to try to gain trust in somebody different, again.
I just have a question. When you're saying you've met with department heads here in town, was the superintendent part of the discussions?
Was not.
Okay.
And we know
That's
that,
a
it's
very
on our
good
list.
Okay,
We
because
gotta-
that's kind of a unique situation.
There's a very unique situation, we heard a lot about it.
Yes, that we're regionalized.
Yeah.
I'm guessing department heads would be highway, fire.
Correct,
All
correct.
of that, but
Yep.
I think school is just as important, and I'm not saying that you don't think that, I'm just, I think that the superintendent, although we're regionalized, also needs to be considered a town manager, department
We
manager.
typically talk to the superintendents and/or a school committee member, or a couple of school committee members, because the synergy of that relationship is, well, if it doesn't work,
That's a
it gets
key,
ugly quick.
Right,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
a key relationship you have to have.
Yeah. Yeah, and we know about the issue, with the new money, I guess, that's being requested and all that kind of stuff.
They're the sort of things that they're looking at right now
Yeah.
with the statutory versus.
Correct. And I guess that's
way we
in your
implement it.
next town meeting, it's right on the warrant that, so that's gonna be telling, I think, as to what happens. I was telling the story this morning that we did about 3-4 months ago, we did the Wenham Town Administrator, Hamilton Wenham, up in that area, beautiful area. Wenham being the predominant community, Hamilton being the predominant community with it's a larger community than Wenham. And what they do is they submit their budget to Wenham, and Wenham has to pass it, basically. So what has happened in the past 3 years, and Wenham's a small town with not a lot of it's all residential. They don't have any commercial, so the burden is where it is. So for the past 3 years, and when we met with the selectmen there, they were saying, you gotta find, we know we can't get around it, because the schools can and will bring out their supporters and get a vote at town meeting when they need it. So what happens is that the town side, if you will, generally has some issues with all of that, because they have to make up the difference in a lot of respects. They're maxed out on their 2.5 levy and all that stuff. So the past 3 years, they've had a general operating override for the schools, 3 years in a row. For operating budget, not for capital. It passes because at the end of the day, when you're going for that ballot question, they get people out. The schools get people out, and they voted. And the chairman of the Board of Selectmen was so frustrated, he says, I don't know what to do, because we get people in town calling us and saying, we can't afford to live here anymore. We just can't afford to live here anymore. So it's a real dilemma. It's a real dilemma. And their relationship was good. The Hamilton Wenham School Committee the selectmen all knew them, and they talked a lot. It wasn't anybody's fault, I guess is my point.
Right.
But it's an issue that needs to be talked out. And everybody has to understand each side's concerns. So, but it potentially turns into volatile issues.
Yes.
My daughter lives in Dunstable. They're part of the Dunstable-Groton district. Believe it or not, if you would talk to anybody on the street, the Groton side is the predominant side. They're a larger town, and they've got great schools. The Groton Dunstable district is a great school. Groton voted down the budget. Dunstable voted for it. And that's the opposite of what I thought would have happened, because Dunstable has like 25 kids in the system, but they voted for it, and ultimately they worked it all out. But those regional districts, and you're looking at the formula allocations and everything, as to who's paying what,
Yes.
which is,
Right, at the moment.
yeah, it's convoluted at best. A lot of these agreements were done 15, 20, 25 years ago,
Right,
and some of them have to be rethought.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's like another important piece for, given the fact that we are a regional school district, I think our town manager has to be able to communicate with the town manager from Whitman, but also realize that we are our own town.
Right.
Although we are working,
Yep.
We share our school district. So I
Yep.
think that's important to see that, again, it goes back to that assertiveness, but being flexible at the same time.
Yeah.
All right, now, so we've got a pretty, thank you on the profile issue, and we've gotten into some of the challenges ahead. And obviously, schools are a challenge for the next administrator, next few
Gonna be a
years.
while.
Other challenges, you mentioned building projects, both the senior, you spoke about yours, and the school, the library yours. Other issues that you see, upcoming that we should know about, or we should be talking to our prospective candidates about? Other issues?
Well, one thing, it would be great if we had a candidate who had a little bit of experience in terms of economic development. We've done some projects in the past. South Hanson, which is the corridor around Route 27 where our commuter rail stop is really sort of underdeveloped. And there's some projects that are percolating there. There's some work being done. And that's, again, where it gets frustrating because some of the work is sort of lost and we have to start afresh. But that, someone who had a little bit of experience in terms of economic development could come in and knew about TIFs and things like that. That would be helpful. It's not necessarily a game breaker, but it would certainly be helpful, I think.
Yeah, I agree, and we heard some of that this morning from your planner. And Buzz and I are gonna go take a look at the site. But that whole 27 corridor with the whole, Josh, the initiatives with smart growth and around train stations and housing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They're ripe for some development, measured development along that corridor. Your problem is some of the infrastructure issues you might have with no sewer and.
Right, and
yeah.
that was one of the things
Yeah.
that there have been talks about tying in equipment and, so it's,
Yeah, but you need somebody to lead that from this end, from the Hanson end.
Yes.
Yes.
You need somebody to lead that.
Yes.
Yeah, we talked about that. We think, especially where if it's measured, done right, with assistance from the state, it helps the overall tax burden here. in town?
Oh, I think it'd be widely popular. If that
Oh,
was-
Do ya?
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's not, I mean, I represent different towns and
Yeah.
have very different
Yeah.
points of view on things, but I think development in that sense would be very warmly embraced.
Okay.
Here in Hanson.
What's the train time, not driving time, train time, from here to South Station?
It's like 40 minutes, yeah.
That's such an asset.
Yeah.
That is such an
Well,
Once we
asset.
get the train fixed, I know that's about more on me. But yeah, no, it's.
That is such an asset to have a train station.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
I mean-
and I think Josh is right, like,
Incredible.
we have this train station in town, there's room for growth and development around that area.
Yeah.
We do have some walkable condos and stuff like that, but we don't, there's a Dunkin' Donuts there and a pizza place,
Yeah.
and that's kind of it.
You need a little more.
Yeah, we need a little something for people who getting off the train can go to.
You have the foundational blocks, the Dunkin' Donuts and the train station.
That's right.
I'm not criticizing Dunkin' Donuts.
No, not at all.
That's a key, that's a building block.
That's right, yeah. You need a dry cleaners, and you need a drugstore, and you need
And
a.
some more restaurants in town would be
Right.
Yeah.
great.
Oh, a restaurant right there would be.
With different
ideal.
flavors.
You think so?
You know, oh, yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, all these things, these are important for us to know.
But they're also fun things for potential candidates.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, there's definitely, you can.
You can vision that and
Come here
say,
do
wow,
things and-
that sounds like fun, let's go at it.
Yeah.
Build a new library and senior
Get
center.
your teeth into it.
Somebody who's willing to reach out to other towns who've done it in the past.
Yeah.
Cohasset has done it, I know we're not Cohasset, but Cohasset has done it, I'm sure other towns have built up around their train stations, so somebody who can go out and say,
That
let's
is-
see, how did you do it?
There's a whole playbook for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like reinventing the wheel.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
And,
Right, don't commit your time to something that's already been done,
Right,
reach out to people
right,
that know what they're
right.
doing.
There's lots of models on how you do that. You just have to coalesce the community and get the right developers
Right,
in place that
Yeah.
see the vision of that. The 40 minutes to South Station is,
That's terrific.
yeah.
That's
I mean,
terrific.
Hate to think what the driving time is in rush hour.
it's awful.
An hour.
Oh, you
About 40
can't
minutes.
get there from here, right?
An
Yeah.
hour and 40 minutes.
At least.
Well, we were telling these folks, Josh, earlier, we came from the North Shore this morning, coming through the city.
What time?
Wasn't that fun? Right around 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Wasn't that fun?
Yeah, you can never, I mean, I drive to Boston a lot, there's never a time.
No.
Where the traffic is good.
Yeah, you can't.
Never.
No.
We lived in Braintree before we moved down here, and that was, having the commuter rail so close was definitely a selling point. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
Where we were in Braintree, we could walk to a commuter rail, we could take the bus to
Yeah.
the train station, but we're actually walkable from the commuter rail here, and it's been great for not only my husband who commutes day in and day out to Boston, but as a family.
Yeah.
I mean, I take my children on the purple train, is what they call it, and
Yeah.
they go into the city, so
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
great.
huge thing.
Yeah.
That's such an asset for the town.
Other things, not having been to your town meetings, are the contentious issues at town meeting, previous town meetings we should know about? Big fights, little fights?
The train station, the transfer station right now is sort of
I mean, I can step back a little, because I'm not a Hanson resident, we have our battles, and frankly, that happens in every town.
Yeah.
And I see it in
Yeah.
every community I represent, I don't think it's any worse or necessarily
All
better
right.
in Hanson. I think there is one thing that sort of probably I've heard about, and I think it's stabilized, but there was this undercurrent of instability in the town politics as well. We had, people who were recalled, we had very vociferous citizen groups, and I think that's sort of quieted down, but I think that's still out there, and, I think that has impacted the stability of the town.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, I'm not taking a
Mhm.
side, but.
Was there a community group that had a name or?
There have been different groups over the years. I mean, if you go back more like 20 years, there was, we had some major issues where somebody went to jail and there was citizen watchdog groups and so forth. That's sort of ancient past.
Yeah,
Thankfully. But, there's still.
No, let me ask this, we haven't heard from the department heads, but in some towns, there's somebody who's like a blogger, has their own little axe to grind, and and they will just grind it in social media. Has that been an issue on anything we should know about?
how do you want to answer that, John?
Are we being recorded here?
Well, we are, in fact, we are.
I can
We
answer
are,
that
we
if
are
you
cable,
want.
we are on.
We do have citizens in town who will jump to social media and come hell or high water, put out there continuously stuff that creates division in town.
Yeah.
But I don't know as an administrator, what you can really do about that, because that is sort of their right. That is their free speech. So I don't know, setting a tone would be something that you would have to do as a town administrator. But again, like, you can't police these people, you can't stop them from.
It's I get it, I agree, it's not any specific to Hanson, I represent town of Duxbury, and they had,
It's the same.
earlier there's issue with plovers and coyotes on the beach, and like, it was just, you couldn't, like, social media is very negative about it, and, that's just sort of the nature of the beast, I don't think it's.
It is the nature of the beast. It's funny, one of the
We're
things
not gonna
we
solve it.
No,
Now, one of the things we think about in
We have
talking
social
to
media.
our candidates, potential candidates, we talk to them about this whole social media phenomenon. Because some managers get buried in it and do the wrong things
Yes.
by typically trying to respond.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
And you get yourself in a lot of trouble. So one of the questions we ask, how do you manage social media today? And by the way, tomorrow, it's gonna be totally different. There'll be different platforms, but it's coming at you. So how do you manage that?
Sure.
And some of them look at us like with the blank stares. Some of them say, you know what, I have it in my town, here's what I do, blah, 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 So it's something you gotta deal, unfortunately, I think we all have to deal with it.
Sure.
But you can let it consume you if you don't manage it.
and that's, and in terms of essay questions, if, perhaps not in this community, but in other communities where it has been a real problem, we'll ask the potential candidates, how do you deal with that? What's been your experience with that? What would you do with that kind of thing? And what we found in some communities, larger communities than Hanson, of course, is they'll have like a public information officer in the town manager's office or in the city administrator's office, just to get out the correct message of the city council or the board of selectmen. Not necessarily to answer every, buddy who's out there, but at least to push the message of what the community is doing, what the town and the city is doing. So that's can be a growing problem for
And
people
it's
today.
as bad, if not worse, than the school side. Because you got a ton of parent groups that get involved and they all get on the list.
Or you have people on the opposite side of
You
the
get,
school
you get
issue
all of that. So it's a legitimate question. Speaking of the questions, Buzz, maybe we ought to tell them what the process is that we do.
Why don't you tell them what the process is?
Okay. All right,
Stand
so
up for himself.
where we are is, we've got the ad out, obviously. It expires June 30th, I'm sorry, September 30th. So respondents are starting to come in to us. They come into MRI's website. And by the 30th, we'll close the process. The last week or so is when you get the serious folks. We got some inquiries now from Alaska or whatever, but the serious folks who are interested in this are sitting at their kitchen tables thinking, well, what do you think? You think we could move to Hanson and blah, blah, blah. So it's decisions that are impactful on their lives, so they don't make that decision until right at the end, the deadline. So we get a flurry of folks over that last.
Can I ask a question? I don't mean to interrupt,
Yes.
but while you're on that topic,
Yes.
my concern is just that we're going to have not enough of an applicant pool, and then kind of be faced with some situations been in the past where we're picking amongst a more slim number of candidates.
Yep.
What do you do, like if September 30th comes around to the 29th and you really don't have what just looking from the outside
Right,
is a super strong applicant pool? What do you do, or what can we do?
Do you reopen the search?
We
or
will
you-
talk with the appointing authority, and if we don't think there's somebody there, we'll talk to Alan. Alan is our president, and he's good about it. Our mission here is to satisfy the client, and you're the client. The select board here is our client, so I hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
But if it does, then we'll revisit that whole issue.
Do you have, I mean, you obviously know people in the field, and you know
Yeah.
people who, someone over here who might be looking,
Yep,
kind of thing,
yep.
and I assume you have those kind of contacts?
Yep, yep.
And that's part of what, the value that, a recruiting firm
Sure.
will offer.
Right.
Is that
We don't have that.
we know who's out there, we have people who have not made it in other searches. And that doesn't mean they haven't been good, but the selectmen can only hire one.
Right.
And sometimes we'll give them 4, 3, never two, just, at the very end, right? The very end, never really 2. We always try to do, 3, 4. And so somebody doesn't get the job. And we know them well, they're great
They're good people.
individuals,
Yeah.
but for that fit,
Yeah.
So again, this is going back 3 time managers ago, or time managers. We actually had a situation where there were 3 finalists. One of them dropped out almost immediately. The other was like, there was some issue that got revealed about them that made them
Yep.
unqualified. So it was really, it was a bad situation. The town ended up hiring that one person.
Yeah.
But it put them in a tough spot, and that's what I just don't want to see
Yeah.
happen. I
Yeah,
guess.
well, we agree with that. We don't want to give the town one alternative. That, unless the person's a star and the other people just left for their own reasons. But we would revisit that whole issue. So from the 30th, once we get the resumes, let's pick a number. Let's say we get 35 resumes. Buzz and I individually score the resume that we get. We've got spreadsheets set up through our office. We score them based on the content of the resume. I run a local Dunkin' Donuts. I think I could be the next TA in Hanson. That's probably not going to get a high score. Nothing against the person, but I'm not sure they'd be ready for this job. So we score them. I think it's a point system, 1 to 5. From that, we try to narrow the field down to, I'm saying in a town like this, maybe 10, 12 folks. We then, Buzz and I will sit, based on stuff we got here, from the department managers, from the selectmen, from you guys, we will then craft some essay questions. And for a couple of reasons. Number one, we want to see they can write. Believe it or not, some people, if you've communicated today, in today's world, if you communicate, the written word is kind of lost.
Yeah.
Because everybody does this. So we want to see they can write. We want to see that they're smart enough to put sentences together. We want to see that they comprehend the nature of the question. What is your experience in, as we said, things like smart growth? And give us examples in your current position where you've actually implemented. Don't just talk, just show us some examples where you've done stuff. And they outline it in their essay questions. So we get the essay questions out. We give them 10 days. We send it to them. We give them 10 days to respond to us. When they respond to us, and some drop out at that point, and that gives us an indication, and our process is a little different, that gives us an indication that they're not really that interested. They were scattering their resumes out, not necessarily about Hanson, but gee, it is a TA position. But if Rutland asks, maybe I'll go to Rutland, that type of stuff. So we're not sure that, we think that helps weed out those who are candidates, but not serious candidates. So let's assume we get 8 of them back. Buzz and I score those based on their response to the essay question, their intelligence in terms of responding, grammar, all of the above. Somebody sends me a written response of 2 or 3 pages, and they have grammatical errors everywhere. That's probably going to be a demerit. You can use spell check today, so we shouldn't be seeing any of that stuff. It's just non-paying attention to detail. So we get that stuff. We narrow it down to a reasonable number based on those. When we're ready to present to the board, to the appointing authority, we give them everything. We give them the letters of submittal, the resumes, the answers, the questions, the answers to the questions, anything we found in our Google searches about anybody, anything we happen to know about. Not everything shows up on Google. We know some of the folks who may apply here, and we know what they've done, who they've done, you know, where they've been. Some of it is not a game changer, as Buzz suggested this morning. You can go on Google and see some areas, everything's public today. Some areas where you see some nastiness, you know, town administrator X is not happy that the board would not continue his contract and wasn't happy with the salary negotiations and blah, blah, blah. That's not necessarily negative. You don't know if that's the manager's fault or the administrator's fault. It might be on the other side of the table where the fault is. But you'll see it if you Google it. And people just, the quick reaction to that is, that's a person that can't get along with anyone. So, you know, we know a lot of that stuff, so we'll either move somebody forward or say, you know what, that Google search was right. This person is not very. So then we present those folks. We will counsel the board on questions you can ask. You know how all that goes today. You gotta be careful about what you ask and all that kind of stuff. We ask them that when they get to 3, as Buzz suggested, 3, maybe 4 finalists, that they ask the same questions generically and then feed off of those answers that the person gets. And then you can go in a lot of different areas as to what you want to ask. So, yeah, is that?
Yeah, and what, you know, if there is a candidate that has had a rough time with the previous town, previous employee, we tell them to talk about that right up front. You know, just say, yeah, I had a tough time, you know, and for whatever reasons. And as long as there are legitimate reasons, and that's the only reason they're going to be there is because it's legitimate reasons, we say address it right up front.
Yeah, don't hide it.
Yeah, because, you know, I mean, nobody's absolutely perfect, but there are reasons why there may have been concerns and why you left early or didn't fulfill a contract or whatever.
Right.
So get it out there. And, yeah, a couple of things. Just so you know, we do have a, it's nothing's anonymous, so it can't be anonymous, but it is confidential. We have a confidential a website that people who want to make comments about the search can do that in confidence to us. It's Hanson TA Recruitment at mrigov.com. Hanson TA Recruitment at mrigov.com, and it's on the press release.
I think it was in the paper.
Mary,
Yeah, it should be, and it should be on your website. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah.
But,
Hanson TA Recruitment.
Yeah, Hanson TA Recruitment, all one,
Yep.
at our website, mrigov.com. And we encourage people to use it who can't be here, or if something occurs to you in the middle of the night and you're compelled to write us, you know, send it. In fact, in one community, we had north of Boston, Bedford, Massachusetts. They have the Air Force Base, right, Hanson? And there's issues there with the neighborhood. And didn't we get, you know, a half a dozen comments, confidential, from the neighborhood? And
funny how the letter was the same letter from all 6 people.
and so we will summarize, we'll tell the board, you know, that we got, and we told them that it was obviously the South Bedford Neighborhood Association that wrote us about the airport, and they had heard about it repeatedly, it wasn't anything new. But we'll get, you know, comments about the, I don't know, about traffic, you know, some communities, someone won't be able to make a meeting and they'll talk about traffic concerns or other neighborhood concerns, and we, without a name, we'll say, well, we heard about what Main Street is like between 4 and 7 p.m.
Yeah.
or something like that. So we encourage people to write and let us know just kind of what's on their mind. And we never get anything like bad or snarky. I mean, no, it's never like a blog thing so much as it is, I couldn't make the meeting, and I want you to know that I think the next, you know, TA should have in these skills.
Yep. We've actually had some writing to us from union presidents. Just say, you know, I just want you to know from our perspective as a union, here's what we think the next administrator should, the type of, you know, talk to us, don't just shut us out, and, you know, all that kind of stuff, which we found beneficial.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't want to say that anywhere else, you know, but they sent it to us, we saw it. We talked to all the final candidates, that, you know, this was a concern, and it was from a particular unit. And, you know, it's good for the person, whoever it is, to come in to that, knowing that in the back of his or her mind, that I know there's some issues here, so I'll have to address those. So it's a good vehicle for you. We get varying results. I think we had 15 in one community. We've had 3 or 4 in other communities. So, but it just gives it, again, I think we talked about it earlier, it gives people in the community the opportunity to say something. If they don't, they don't.
Right.
So,
You said her mind. Let's talk about her for a minute. We, you know, as a profession, the managers group, over the last, you know, 35, 40 years that I've been involved, has been trying to recruit, attract, retain women as managers. And we're pretty darn successful. And then all of a sudden, there was this a huge change because of people aging out. The woman who was in Situate retired. The woman who was in Ipswich retired. The woman who was in Sudbury retired.
Weston,
The woman who was in
Donna.
Weston, yes, Weston retired. We had this huge shift, and we thought, oh my gosh, the world is ending. We're never going to find a female. Oh my God, what are we going to do? We only hire females. Bedford, Sarah, right?
Yeah.
Bedford. Berlin,
Margaret, yeah.
Margaret.
Yeah.
And the last 2 we did, North Andover,
Melissa.
and then Westford,
Jody.
Oh, Westford. Oh no, I'm sorry.
Westboro.
Westboro.
Chris.
Christie.
Yeah.
So there is this whole infrastructure of females that are repopulating the town administrator, town manager ranks. It was
It's been a sea change.
yeah.
It's been a sea change.
It's
And,
been
which
good
is good.
profession,
Oh, absolutely.
you know. And in fact, in the funny thing is, in North Andover, the HR director is a female, town accountant or finance director is a female, a deputy town manager is a female, and now today is the starting date for Melissa. So it's like a whole woman-led organization. It's a riot.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's
good to see
interesting.
because we didn't. I mean, I didn't expect. I thought after this wave left, we'd be like starting the women off as like assistants or assistant twos or deputy. You know. Anyway, so hopefully we'll have some women candidates.
A good mix. You know, on the other side of the coin, it's not our fault, it's not MRI's fault, but what we haven't done collectively as an industry is attract diversity as much as we'd like to. And that's nobody's fault here, but and that's a lot of our schools. I know the public administration schools, Suffolk and some of the others, they're trying to branch out and reach out and get those groups involved. Buzz and I were in it for a long time. It's a great career. It's a great career. It's tough getting young people. I've got 2 girls. Neither one of them want to be in the public arena. Josh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I just said that too.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
But like I said, I've got 2 girls, and neither one of them wanted anything to do with the public sector. My wife was a public teacher, a public school teacher. Boom, they're going in different directions. I don't want to do that.
They saw you at 2 night meetings.
They saw me and said, I don't want to do what you do, and I don't want to do what she's doing. Yeah.
Well, we're happy to continue on if you folks have a few more comments or suggestions for us.
Good. Thank you
Good.
so much for
Good.
Thank you guys for
coming out.
Well, get the word out to your friends and your constituents for if they want to come and want to make a comment online to us in our
Absolutely.
confidential little mailbox. We would love to hear from them. And same thing with your friends. If you have friends, I don't know if people who can't make it tonight. We're going to say the same thing tonight, by the way, about our confidential mailbox. In case people can't make it, 'cause I know how busy people
So
are.
if your life is incredibly boring, you can come back tonight.
Here's some business cards if you'd like a business card from me.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Well done.
Thank you so much.
This was great. Thank you.